At this time, I'll call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. First item then would be consider the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting that was held on June 25th. The council does have the minutes. Are there any corrections?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Steve to approve the minutes as they have been prepared. We will move to a vote.
I don't have a voting thing. No, I don't have one up at all.
Stephen.
This is the agenda.
Stephen.
I know.
She didn't want to vote.
Thank you.
Bill's okay with voting? We will close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move to agenda item number 2. This is a public hearing on the West Lion Street, North 3rd Street reconstruction project. So it's a public hearing on the assessment for that construction. Following the public hearing, we'll consider the resolution that would adopt the assessment. To conduct this public hearing, I'll call on Jason Anderson, City Engineer, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in the packet, you've got the assessment roll for your review. This was the reconstruction, obviously, last year and at the beginning of this year of West Line and North 3rd Street. The cost breakdown on the project is included in the memo as well as the packet as well. You'll note 7.4% of the project costs to wastewater, 15.9 MMU, 21.1% to surface water utility, 12% assessed, and 43% city participation, 43.6. Total project amount with engineering fees included was $4,381,637. Proposing to do an 8-year assessment term at 5.27% interest. If there are any questions, I can answer them or help address questions regarding the assessment roll, but staff would recommend that we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Jason. As part of the public hearing, I'd entertain any input from any member of the audience or member of the council as part of the public hearing. Derek? Derek, as part of the, for the record, you have to give your name and your address.
Yep,
so.
Derek Dietz, 256 West Main Street. Owner of Columbia Imports on the corner there. I was assessed $39,716 for this project. So I'm just kind of here to get an idea of why that number is so high. There are 22 blocks of sidewalk there. I don't know if I'm being assessed for, parameters that are outside my my lot. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of why I stand here today.
Okay, Jason?
Thank you, Mayor and Mr. Dietz. The assessment roll breakdown for your property is $1,948 for a storm drain. That's like a roof leader that comes off of your building into the storm sewer system, so a drain that serves only your building.
Okay.
$866 for a sewer connection, $1,914 for
Sorry,
6-inch.
Jason, could you start from the top again there?
Yes. $1,948.80 for storm drain,
Okay.
$866 and some change I can grab later, but around $866 for the sewer Y, which is the connection to the main, $1,914 for 6-inch sewer pipe to serve your building, $13,675 for the street out in front of the building for the frontage. That's capped significantly. The actual cost, I think, was roughly 45 or 6,000, but the.
For that patio project?
For the street itself, but the
Okay.
city's policy caps the street participation
What-
at $13,675.
Why do I pay for the street?
We have a special assessment policy which identifies how we break out costs. Every property on a street reconstruction pays for a portion of the street costs that are not covered by the city or the utilities. The full cost was $45,000, but what you're actually being assessed is $13,675 for the street. And then the final portion of the assessment is part of the streetscaping costs, $21,312. You were charged streetscaping at a rate of $197 per foot, and your property has a lot of front footage on Third Street, so that's why that number got big. And it's bigger than others on that block because of the amount of frontage that you have. It's
So
all done by
why would I
frontage.
be, sorry, why would I be charged for anything that exceeds the sidewalk?
The city council worked with the city staff and property owners on the project to determine how streetscaping amenities were going to be assessed. There was a portion of the cost paid for by the city and a portion assessed to the property owners. I believe it was an 80-20 split. The 20% assessed turned out to be around $197 per foot. And I forget your frontage, it's probably, I think it's 106 feet. So your frontage, your front footage on Third Street of 108 feet times that rate for streetscaping of $197.34 equates to the $21,000 that you're being assessed.
Do these
So-
numbers seem
Yeah.
like reasonable for me to pay $39,000 for this?
I can understand how maybe you're feeling
Overwhelmed? This is a
overwhelmed.
full year's
You
income.
were not the property owner when the project was started. We were working with the prior property owner. So this wasn't something, it may be new to you in this moment as the new property owner, but it was something that was discussed at that time.
So Derek, if you want to preserve your rights to appeal this assessment, you would need to do it in writing before we adjourn this hearing. So, if you have a piece of paper or something, just write on there, I reserve my right to appeal the assessment, discuss at this hearing, and then just sign your name and date it.
Okay.
That way you have rights if you choose to move forward to
Yeah, it just
to
seems like
challenge
an
this
astronomical number for a project that I was vocal about. And I understand that I was not the property owner at the time, so that puts me in a pinch here, but, yeah, $39,000, 500, or 716. Quite a bit. I've applied for multiple grants since being a business owner there, haven't received a single one. Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. I understand it's over 8 years, still 5.5%. So yeah, I guess I will probably submit afterward.
So as long as Stephen Anderson, the city clerk, as long as you give that to him, did you have something more you wanted to say, or?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, under the state statutes, if the council is considering having further conversation regarding this parcel, then the council would, somebody would want to entertain a motion of adopting the assessment roll minus these particular parcels and continue the hearing with respect to these particular parcels to a date and time certain. And then you can consider that objection, that written objection, if it gets filed.
Okay.
Or in the alternative, the council could adopt the assessment roll as is, and then there could be a reconsideration by the council of that particular parcel. So there's two different ways that the council can handle if a written objection.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Derek. Are there any other input, comments as part of the public hearing related to the assessments? If not, as City Attorney Pam Whitmore has outlined, the council has those options before you, either to adjourn the public hearing or to adjourn it with that exception for a date specific for additional consideration of that property question.
So to be clear with what council's suggestion was, is do we adjourn the hearing or do we approve the assessment short of?
So the decision, council member, is, well, because you're in public hearing right now. So you would either have the adjournment of this hearing or continue to a date certain for that specific parcel for further consideration. And then the motion that the council would consider would be whether that assessment roll that's being adopted this evening is with or without that
Okay,
part.
So there'd be two actions. One is to end the hearing, and the second is consider the resolution. And you got a couple options on ending the hearing, either ending the hearing or continuing the hearing to discuss the one property.
probably be cleaner to continue the hearing and then consider all of the assessments after we review the appeal.
I think, council member, it'd probably be easier to just continue with respect to that one property and then adopt the assessment roll either as is and reevaluate that one property, or the easier way to do it is to adopt the assessment roll amended for not having those properties included at this time.
I move that we close the hearing and continue with Deitz's property for further evaluation.
Okay, motion by Craig. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Steve. So the motion is to close the public hearing and continue with the exception of the continuance to discuss the one specific property.
Yes.
Now, discussion on that motion. You know, the justification here is that that is the side of this building and the storefront actually
Right.
of this building which is different than the rest of the properties or most of
Exactly.
the rest of the properties on Third Street. The
It's a
front
very
of
unique
this business.
situation with Mr. Deitz's property.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. So now the resolution adopting the assessment. Pam, you have a comment on this?
I just was curious I can't remember if, Councilmember Schaefer, if you had a date certain proposed in that, time and date certain proposed in that motion that was approved for the continuation of the hearing?
Would it be appropriate to do it in 30 days? So it'd be at the first meeting in.
First meeting in August.
In August.
Okay. That's it. And Jason, that gives adequate time for discussion with the property owner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Derek?
You okay?
The first meeting in August is August 12th, and it's a Monday, so just remember,
Okay.
it's not a usual Tuesday.
Okay. We'll come on the correct day.
We'll expect you to notice us on that meeting, by the way. Okay, very good.
So the second action would be the resolution that would adopt the assessment with the exception of the property that we just discussed.
I move that we adopt the assessments with the exception of the Deitz property in discussion.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. Motion passes. Agenda item number 3 is consider the award of bids for the utility vehicle for the fire department. I'll call on Marshall Fire Chief Quentin Brunswold.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As part of your packet this evening was the bid tabulation sheet that laid out the bids that were received. It was a very competitive bid, which we were very happy about. Obviously two very close bids at the very top, as you can tell. Very similar products, obviously. One does have a 12-month warranty. The other one does have a 24-month warranty. Our recommendation would be to accept the low bid from Action Sports for the purchase of that Ranger, but with all obvious consideration for the additional warranty for $19.73. That's would be council decision.
So the specifications, though, both met the specifications, and the specifications on the warranty was 1 year.
Correct. And they did bid a 2025 model unit that does have a 2-year warranty, and I did not put it on the tabulation sheet, but it was like 20,000 and some change, if I recall here. Excuse me.
They being Castello?
20,294, excuse me.
They being
Action Sports.
Action Sports
Yes,
did?
correct.
Okay.
And that has a 2-year warranty. It was a 2025 unit with a 2-year warranty for 20,294.
Okay, questions?
I don't have any questions, but I'm just going to comment. I myself own a Ranger. I don't think the warranty is a big deal. We've played with ours very, very hard. We've never had trouble. I mean, I've had ours buried in mud that, well, it was very ugly. But I would not be afraid of this. I don't think there'll be a warranty issue. You guys are not going to abuse it like we abuse ours.
Once again, that's council decision. My recommendation would be to go with the low bid. Council decides the rest after that. So the fire department, when it does get used, it has to get used hard. We're driving through lots of areas. Obviously, we don't see rocks, everything under the sun. So just imagine that. And
The warranty probably wouldn't cover that anyway.
hard telling. That's right.
I'd make a motion to accept the low bid from Action Sports.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
Thanks, Quentin.
We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to the items on the consent agenda. And they include calling for the public hearing for a new on-sale liquor license for Cezanne Cataracho LLC. Calling for a public hearing to consider granting a franchise agreement with Minnesota Energy Resources and introduction of the ordinance. Consider the liability coverage waiver for 2024-2025 League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust, property and casualty and liability insurance. Consider the approval to allow Holy Redeemer Church to hold a raffle on September 28th. Consider the approval to allow Holy Redeemer Church to hold a raffle on December 31st, and consider the approval of the bills and the project payments. Is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for separate discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. The motion does pass. Agenda item number 10, the City of Marshall 2023 audit. I'll call on Director of Administrative Services, E.J. Moberg, to present this agenda item, and also recognizing that the audit was presented in a work session just prior to this meeting. EJ.
Thank you. Yes, the auditors from Bergen KDV met with council in a work session prior to this meeting. Just wanted to highlight that it was an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion an auditor is able to offer. So we got a clean bill of health there. There were no written findings. The financial statements are included in our council packet tonight, and I anticipate they'll be on the city website within a few days, hopefully by tomorrow even. Otherwise, since we sat through the presentation prior to this at the work session, I'll entertain any questions. as council or the public have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Finance Director Carla Drown in coming days or weeks, whenever questions arise.
Okay, thank you, EJ. Questions or comments from the council? One comment would be, it was a very good audit report with no findings, which meant that it's a very clean audit. That's the credit to the staff, both the finance staff and administration, so thank you. So is there a motion to accept the 2023 audit?
So moved.
Motion by Steve, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. Agenda item number 11 is the card reader key fob entry system at the fire station. Once again, Quentin Brunsvold representing the Marshall Fire Department.
Thank you once again, Mayor and Council. In your packet this evening also includes information about and one bid about the card reader or the key fob type system that would requesting to be installed onto the fire station. Right now we do have a 5-button punch code that is on all the doors of the fire station, all the apparatus bay doors, so the 4 doors on each corner of where all the fire trucks essentially park is what we have there. Anytime a staff person leaves due to resignation or retirement or termination, we do have, luckily Preston Stensrud is a jack of all and he can figure out, he knew how to manipulate that, so we don't have to hire somebody from outside to come do that. And so we do replace that, change that code probably 3 to 4 times per year. The code is easily guessed. It's only 3 digits that are obviously, you just have to get them in the right order. It has been guessed by people before. We did get into a good practice of changing the code on the building a couple times a year, even if we don't have anybody leave us, just for obvious reasons to make sure that everything stays secure as much as possible. And that has helped with keeping people that aren't supposed to be in the building out, which is good. The benefit to this would be that everybody's assigned their own card. If they leave or are terminated or resign, whatever the situation is, that card just be turned off and they can no longer gain access to the building for security measures as well as good controls. We solicited one bid by the current vendor that the city uses because we'd be piggybacking off the system that's already in place here at City Hall. I believe it's also at the Adult Community Center. They have one of the doors there that's connected via a remote type system with cell phone type signal, whatever it is. And then that process we would just work through. We're already connected to the network, so it's kind of just piggybacking off what's there. So some of the technology, luckily, we don't have to purchase because the city already owns it. So you see the one bid by Living Connected that's there for $21,308.21. There was $15,000 in that in the CIP for this project. So as you can read in the memo here, we propose to, since the bid for the last request on the award of bids came in at $2,263 less, that we utilize that remaining balance towards this project. And then $4,045.21 be covered by the CIP fund balance that's remaining according to EJ.
And the system would also have a record of who entered at what time.
Correct. I'm not 100% up on the technology side of that, but from what I understand, that's part of how this all works, yes. Now, this only is the 4 doors on that building. This is the first part of a project of this size. There's many doors on the fire station, obviously. We would probably leave, no, we would leave the front door, if you will, the glass doors that's right behind the bell, that would stay just a key entry. And the side door off of Tiger Lake, we'd leave that as a key entry as well. And there's a few other, one other door that goes into the former residence area. We'd leave that as a keyed area for that. And then on the former ambulance building, those would, we'd propose to try to include those in the future. There is now fiber, the network is included in that building, which is good, and all the technology needed to make a project like this happen over there is in place. It's just a matter of securing funding in order to make that project a thing in the future.
Okay, questions for,
I do have a question. And I'm gonna use, with the key cards, is there a redundant system? So let's say there's a fire and 3 guys show up and they forgot their key cards at home. Is there, they will not have access to that building then?
Well, once again, not a full expert on this, but I do presume that the keyed access would still technically be there. But I'm not 100% sure how that works. Preston, do you know more about that, or?
I think if you switch out the lock, so the handle could still be keyed, yes.
So there could,
Your key, a regular key, or.
Or wait for the next guy to show up?
every time you're waiting, then with the fire, obviously, you know, that,
Well, you can't go with less than 4 guys on the truck anyway.
correct. But that's just, that'd be my only concern, because I'm infamous for leaving this stuff behind.
Yep.
I'd be the one guy standing out there twiddling his thumbs.
I'll say this isn't the only fire station in the state that's this way. We have to, obviously, there's many others that are this way. We'd propose to have, not to get into the nuts and bolts in the administration of how this would work, but to have 2 keys essentially, one on your keychain, because you can't get to the fire station without that. And the other would be typically a card for your wallet or whatever you carry. That could be used for access. If you don't have either of those, then you wait. But we're trying to, we can't come up with every solution or situation that would be presented. But we could try our best to mitigate that. But it is a concern that we've discussed as well. It's going, there would be a learning curve, yes.
What do they do now?
They punch the code in, that's been
Okay.
given to them. You know, we change it however often.
and
And
does
so
every firefighter also have a key then?
they do. Keys aren't used very often. Most people don't even know where their keys are, but they've been issued a key. So that is an option. It's a matter of if they keep a key. I have a key for the building still, but I don't know if, you know, different generations, how they handle their key situation.
Yeah, because it seems a little counterproductive to have this security system and then have a whole bunch of keys out there. too.
Right,
So-
understood, yep.
How many, shall we say, unauthorized entries have there been?
Well, we don't know. We have a camera system in the building now, which is good. We haven't had anything since I've been the fire chief. I know that in the past, we have had kids that have seen their fathers punch the code in and gave the code to their friends when they've been down with dad or whoever doing things. This was been many, many years ago. But in the last 6 years, I don't know of any. So I will say 0, Councilman Meister.
Because then the question would be, to what advantage is the card? If we're not having a problem, is it to protect against future problems, if any? Or is
Yes,
it
that's
to-
what I would say would be, that's my thought process behind it, would be protect feature. You can essentially guess the code, and I know there have been people that have done that, vendors that have done so, former firefighters that do not, no longer have the key, but kind of understand how we do things and have gotten in, not that I'm super concerned of retired or former firefighters, but yes, that would be the reason behind it. Do I think those people are gonna steal the trucks and drive them around? I don't believe so, but this protects the assets of the city. There's a lot of very, very expensive equipment in there that you don't need keys to operate. And one push of the button and you can be out the door if the wrong person got in.
Got it.
Now, we can remove all the hard keys as well. It's up to you. We just have to switch the hardware out, but we still need keys for the other parts of the building because they're about $5,500 per door to put this on. And so starting with this project with 4 main doors that people use is the smartest in my opinion, instead of all 8 doors on the building or 7 doors.
Do those card readers work if the power goes out?
From what I understand, they fail to what you tell them to, the way you program it in. I'm not an expert on this, but listening to smart people way smarter than me, explain it that if the power does go out and it's run off a low voltage system, it's not run off the main system, so like a phone line or computer line, whatever, that it will fail either open or closed, no matter what. So I don't understand the technology. I don't know what happens if the power goes out at City Hall. Can nobody get in here? I don't know.
Our power doesn't go out, so.
We do have a very good reliability rate. I'm sure Councilman Alcorn could tell us about that.
I'd have to find that out. We do have 2 doors that are via keyed. I mean, you can get out and you can get in with a key. So there's 2 of those, and there's several staff that have keys to that, including our building and grounds and some other in administration. We have not had a power outage, so I'd have to get the details on that, but really good success with this. I mean, you know this because you use them as well as council members. Living Connected has been really great. And it does give you security. You know who's in the building, and we get that, you know, City Hall's a public building and the fire department's a public building. At the same time, you really want to know who's in the building. This is public infrastructure here, and it hasn't happened recently, but there's been some times, whether for Rotary or some other reason, where if I ever had to go there, I might have known the code, but I don't feel it's right unless you know as fire chief who's in that building. So I typically have asked. Again, it's been a long time. So in this way, it's all automated and you'll have that information.
And it'd be good for that. I'm sorry.
But anyway, it just, to me, makes sense. And we've had really good success with it here at City Hall and other places.
I do see where there are times when city staff needs to enter the building or a
Yeah.
meeting is happening or whatever. And a lot of times what happens is either I hand the code out, which is another person that has it, that of course I trust Sharon with it, of course, but you know, you hand the code out to people and that's just another person that has it that probably doesn't have to have it unless for that specific purpose. Vendors, a lot of times I'm running down to the fire station during work time to let them in because we don't need to. Now, the pest control fellow or, you know, whoever else, the water guy that's dropping off water, whatever the story is, you could always grant access with a key and then they have that, they let themselves in and out. I don't have to bother with that unless we are no longer doing business with that vendor, and then you can just stop it. You don't have to worry about transferring codes. I get lots of text messages from outside vendors that are needing access for whatever purpose, and you know, that same thing. Utilities actually has and I don't know the inside and out of it, but they have to do water testing on a weekly basis throughout the city, and so they do access the building a few times a week and let water run out of the RPZ that's in there, and they take their samples and they leave. So that would be one aspect of not needing to worry about it anymore because they could have that access as well. So.
Any other questions?
I think there's a convenience, factor to it, because especially if you're in an emergency, you can just quickly run up, swipe it, and get in instead of going, okay, because I have a keypad on my front door, and I come in, I'm like, what is it? It's wrong. I gotta do it again. And so I'm like, trying to get in there, and the dogs are barking, so it's just nice to just scan it and be able to get in right away. And then there's the accountability that, yes, you give a card out, but if somebody else uses it, you know that it was, coded to that person, so you know exactly who gave out the card.
That's a good point. And weather, we do run into issues in the wintertime with weather. If we catch a northwest storm that blows in a bunch of ice and snow, those buttons don't work. So you run around the building and try to find a door that does work. And so we have had that. Or if the mechanical aspect of the door does not function anymore, which happens, it hasn't happened recently because we replaced all the door locks because they just wear out. I mean, it's 20 years of having them on the building. The building's over 40 years old. So replaced all those essentially, but there were times when the mechanical side of it wore out and could no longer be fixed.
Very good. Any other questions?
The only question I have is that this is not budgeted for, right?
It's in the CIP.
Okay.
Yep. So there was $15,000 allotted for that in the CIP for this year. Now, this is over that.
This
yes.
is over that, right.
Correct. And so the extra or the whatever the financial term of it, the overage would be coming from the CIP fund balance, and that's EJ's expertise. I'm just the fire chief.
As well as the
overage from the utility vehicle, not,
right.
That didn't cover that. That was there for that. Which from what I understand, I don't know where the excess comes from, but I'm guessing things like when the utility vehicle didn't meet 18 grand, there's extra 2,500 here and there, and I don't know what the balance is of that. But it sounds like there's enough to cover.
We have sufficient balance to cover the 4,500 that we're looking for this project to move forward. So that's why I suggested to Quentin he could bring it forward.
Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve the purchase.
Yes.
So any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to the agenda item number 12. Consider the approval amendment number 3 between Stockwell Engineers and the City of Marshall for the Marshall Aquatic Center to facilitate a donor splash pad enhancement. So with that, Sharon, you're going to introduce this item?
Yes. Mayor and council members, the city has recently been in contact with a donor who is willing to sponsor enhancements to our splash pad in the amount up to $100,000. We then worked with our engineering firm, Stockwell Engineering Firm, and also Water Technology Incorporated to talk about what are some potential enhancements. As part of that process, it has meant additional engineering and design. And that is what this amendment encompasses. The $100,000 estimate does include the $18,000 for the amendment. But to give the council the full description of possible enhancement and what this means, we do have David Locke from Stockwell via Zoom, and also Doug Whitaker from Water Technologies to talk about some of these enhancements. As well, Preston Stensrud, who has had conversations with the donor, can answer any questions on the donor wishes, as well as other donations to date that the city has had. As you know, we are raising funds to help offset possibly some cost challenges, but also because we have alternates that are proposed to be in the bidding documents, and maybe we can make some of the alternates a reality. So, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay with you, I believe that David and Doug put together a very short presentation on what these enhancements would be.
And we'd also recognize Eric Hansen, an Assistant City Engineer, who's been our representative working on this project. Okay, David and Doug.
Sharon, thank you for that great introduction. Our team has been working diligently on this project. We are in line with our timeline that we've been discussing all along. We will be meeting with the city staff to review final review set here next week. You will see me again at your next council meeting then, although at that one I will be attending in person in order to request advertisement for the project at your July 23 meeting. The project will then advertise upon your approval, and we will be opening bids then the end of August. So the project has continued to move forward, and we've been working closely with Sharon, Preston, Eric, and city staff on this project. As Sharon said, donor has come forward to assist with the enhancement of the splash pad. And I'd like to introduce Doug. I believe you guys have met him before. Doug Whitaker with Water Technology, our aquatics designer on this project. And he is going to go through a short presentation here on kind of what the enhancements entail and kind of the dynamics of the changes. So, Doug.
Thank you, David. Sharon, thanks for the introduction, and Mayor and City Council. What we were asked to do is kind of take a very nice splash pad and make it very unique. And so these kind of images that you're seeing right now are kind of what a normal splash pad looks like, with a lot of excitement and fun activities. The next slide kind of shows the opportunity to put in some kind of jets that will provide a variable output that will control the height of the nozzles going up and down. If you click on the blue, there you have the splash body valves that then you can kind of see a very dynamic splash pad that adds a lot of interest value to the entertainment of this kind of a facility. One of the things that's unique about these valves are the fact that they're very low maintenance, they're easy to program, and so that's why they were considered for selection. And so again, you can kind of see it provides a lot more animation and dynamics to the splash pad. The next slide kind of shows a plan view of all the different types of features that are on, that'll be spraying. You can see the white little kind of, I'll call it kind of an S format that goes down the center and around the edges. Those are the dynamics valves and features that will be very animated. The next image kind of shows a better highlight in blue of those valves where they will be operational. The next slide kind of shows an image of the types of heights that the nozzles will be able to provide. And I think the next slide kind of shows a image of when everything's operational, kind of on a elevation view. You can kind of see the splash pads. The nozzles will modulate very dynamically, but it'll be kind of within the realm of operations. And then they'll be at the right height for the different age groups that each part of the splash pad is appealing to. The next slide shows we can actually put on a show where we actually turn off all the other features and make the dynamic proportional feed valves be very dynamic and create a nice little show. And you can do all those different types of patterns that you saw in that little video on this splash pad, which is typically this is an extremely expensive approach, but we've been using this splash body valves just to be able to be very easy to maintain and very cost effective. And it creates that unique, enhanced entertainment value that the donor was kind of expressing, and Preston had kind of talked about that they were interested in. I think the next one is more verbiage about what are the different types of reasons to go for this kind of a show fountain that adds play value. Are there any questions at this time?
Questions from the council? Sharon, anything more? Thank you, Doug. Thank you, David. Any questions for either Eric or Preston?
So is the 18,000 essentially just to reconfigure it? Is that what it is?
Dave?
Yes, the donor, as Sharon said, is kind of more of a recent discussion that happened with them in the last few weeks to get that signed off on from them. We have our final submittal due this week, so it was a very short turnaround. We were essentially kind of at that point where the splash pad had already been designed, piping laid out. This change, we had to redo the piping. We had to add a valve vault. There's an additional controller that needed to be incorporated with it. So there was some rework, some redesign that needed to happen very quickly in order to not hold up the rest of the project.
And see, the other part of your question may have been that the amount of the donation will cover the additional engineering, so our action would just be to allow the engineering to occur. It's covered within that $100,000 as well as the enhancement itself.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep, that's correct.
Other questions or?
Make a motion to approve the amendment.
I'll second.
Motion by Amanda, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Thank you.
And I think it's nice to see the community continuing to be engaged and excited about the new aquatic center.
Yep.
Nice to see these things coming in.
Preston, you want to make any comments about donations at this point, or you want to save those comments till our July 25th meeting?
I can give you guys a quick update. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for supporting that. Like David kind of mentioned, it was kind of a, I won't call it a last minute, but kind of a change right at the end. But kind of taking a Chevy splash pad and making it a little bit of a Cadillac. But the person that did the donation was very passionate about water movement and really felt strongly about doing this. And I think that makes us kind of a destination too, because this is very unique, as I've been talking with David and Doug about this. It's not something you're just going to go to another town and see.
Bellagio.
Yeah, exactly. Just on a little smaller scale, but yeah. So I think that'll be enticing not only to our community, but then the region, and as people visit Marshall for whatever other events they might be here too. But to date, for donations and commitments, counting the splash pad, we're just shy of 600,000 in sponsorships and stuff. So looking to get to that 1 million or just a little bit above 1 million. So we're still working on it. We've just been busy with everything going on and all the rain and stuff like that. So we've kind of been a little flat lately, I'll say, but we're still working on it. And as time allows, we'll keep working on it too. But I'm confident when we kind of see construction and stuff like that, we'll get a new energy. And I know there's people out there that still are interested in helping. We just haven't sat down and met with them face to face. So yeah, overall support's still there. We get questions, calls, emails, almost weekly about updates and when are we going to see something happening. So
Very good. Thank you, Preston. We'll move then to the next agenda item, which would be agenda item number 13, the adoption of the joint airport zoning ordinance. I'll call once again on Jason Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. The airport safety zoning ordinance is already in effect. The JASB, the Joint Airport Zoning Board, has approved it. They went through a statutorial described process, held a public hearing, received MnDOT commissioner approval, and then came back and adopted the ordinance. What we're looking to do now is take that ordinance and make it a part of our city ordinances, so it's not a separate standalone document. We think it gives it better visibility, easier for the public and city staff to interact with by doing this. So that's the purpose of what we're doing today. If there's any questions, I can answer them. Included in the packet is the proposed ordinance as well.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Pam, do you have any comments?
No, we've just found that this is a good best practice for the public to be able to have one spot where they can find all the relevant code.
Council have any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Jim, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 14. This is the West Lion Street, North 3rd Street reconstruction project. We have a change order, the final change order to consider, as well as the acknowledgement of the final pay request. Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier tonight, we discussed the assessment role for this project. This is the final reconciling change order and final pay request. The project is completed, so city staff is just taking the necessary steps to close the project. The final pay request amount is $39,368.94. Upon making this final payment, we'll come to a total construction contract amount of $3,777,763, or $763.22, which is a net decrease of the original contract amount by just under $70,000. Staff would recommend that we approve the final payment and the final change order.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Motion by Steve, seconded by John to approve the change order. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. Agenda item number 15, the firm gas service extension agreement with Great Plains Natural Gas for Air Park East. Once again, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. The city's currently constructing our snow removal equipment and maintenance building in the Air Park East area of the airport. We've also been working with Great Plains Natural Gas to coordinate the extension of the gas main into this area. To do so, Great Plains requires us to enter into this extension agreement. In this agreement, the city agrees to pay for the costs of the extension of the gas main. The existing gas facilities are located on Highway 19 and Channel Parkway, and they need to extend the gas to the north and into Air Park East. Estimated cost at this time is $57,386, and that's outlined in the agreement. Great Plains will expect that the city pay the actual cost upon receiving bids. We've worked with Pam Whitmore, city attorney, and her office to review this. So we feel like we have it in a good place to bring it to you tonight. We do have $90,000 budgeted in the SRE project for electric and gas infrastructure.
And so if there's other users hook onto this main that we are constructing Great Plains' gas main, are we reimbursed then?
Yes, that is correct. Up to a certain number of years, we will be reimbursed for connections.
I think it's 5 years, Jason, for it to go back.
It's 5 or 7, I forget, yeah.
You know, obviously, we're talking about a city facility here, but this practice also of Great Plains also applies to residential development and commercial development. So, and it really is inhibiting some development, especially natural gas, because if you're constructing a house and you're a ways away from other houses, you have to pay for that Great Plains to put their main in, and then you have to pay for the service connection fee. And that probably makes natural gas a little bit unfeasible for an energy source then. So I think that's a problem with the franchise agreement that we have for natural gas. You know, we don't have that issue with electrical services. You know, our municipal utilities does provide the main to all of the commercial or residential properties. MMU doesn't expect the residents to pay for their main, but yet with a gas main, they expect the residents to pay for the gas main that they own. So, you know, it is what it is on this project, but I think it's a discussion item when we discuss franchise renewal for natural gas.
You know, since you brought that up, Bob, and yes, as a developer, we're very aware of that. That's why we build houses in a row, because then they'll do it. But we're one of the few communities that do that. I know we're building in Fairmont and Medelia now, and they have their gas lines all run into their subdivisions that we just hook up to their gas lines. So Marshall is actually odd.
But are they municipal gas or are they private like we are?
One's Minnesota Energy and one is CenterPoint.
Okay.
So they are private. So Marshall's odd that it's done this way to us as developers and as a city. You are correct.
But I think this is consistent with
Could be considered Great Plains, but
Right.
I'm just saying, but just other communities we've worked with, CenterPoint to Minnesota Energy, their infrastructure's in. So I don't know why Great Plains opted not to do that. So it is well worth looking at or pushing Great Plains, saying that, you know, this is not necessarily the best practice that we have for our city.
Question that I have on the current location, they're still east of the diversion channel, right? So it was going to take a bridge crossing?
Where they proposed to extend on the west side of the diversion channel to avoid the bridge crossing. We did talk with them because they have facilities on the east side near US Bank. Crossing the diversion channel is very expensive because of federal regulation. We have some conduits on our bridge that we offered to them, but they're too small. They do not meet their standard. So it just was infeasible. So that leaves us with working off the west side of the channel. I know they're still working diligently to get some information from the Corps of Engineers and some approvals, but this is one step closer.
Okay.
The private hangar that was recently constructed, what is the heat source that they have?
They currently have a propane tank set, but in their lease agreement, when Sharon and I worked with them on that, it's acknowledged that once gas is available, they connect to the gas system.
Okay, and I'm sure TKDA or someone has done the analysis on, this is still the most cost-effective source of energy to provide the heat for the building, even with this $50,000+ charge to pay for Great Plains' main.
I think that's one piece of the conversation, and then the other piece is that you have an air park, a development park over there that is much more developable with natural gas there. If we ever hope to get more tenants and possibly businesses out there, they'll certainly need natural gas.
Any other questions for Jason?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion?
The only thing I'll add, Bob, is it's a necessary evil to do, and it's just, as a developer, I've dealt with this for 10, 15 years with Great Plains. It's frustrating, I get it.
Yeah. Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll move then to the agenda item number 16, consider the approval of the amendment to the final lease agreement with Adult Basic Education Program, extending the agreement effective August 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2024. Sharon?
Yes, AB has requested an additional month lease. This is due to a slightly delayed construction schedule at SMSU. And so the original agreement was written by the city attorney, and she also prepared the amendment. And we feel that the arrangement has been working out really well. We have no issues extending it for another month. I know the amendment does state if there's additional time needed, that administration could extend it via the language in the amended agreement. So I recommend approval.
Pam, you have any comments?
No, I would just say that the delegated power that's included is limited to 1 month increments up to a certain number of times, so.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
So move.
A second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Amanda. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We'll note the one abstention. Agenda item number 17, the salaries and compensation of the mayor and council persons. So our city charter does require us to discuss this every 2 years, preceding the general election for council members and or the mayor's position. Past practice has been that this has been adjusted by the percentage adjustment for the non-union employees that for the previous year or two. So that's been our past practice. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be our practice now. Sharon, do you have anything additional you want to add?
No. I think the memo lays out really good history, and also the statute and the ordinance and charter requirements.
Questions or discussion or input? So the action would be either to take no action or to introduce the ordinance.
I'll move to introduce the ordinance.
I'll second it.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Jim. And it's always, this is always the awkward item to discuss, so. So discussion on the motion.
Just like usual, I'm going to state what I stated the last time we did this. We hate to drive up levy taxes for these positions that we're all sitting up here. However, in order to attract good people, there's a lot of time that goes into this job, a lot. And I don't know if the public can see the ranked council salary by city, but Wilmer, which has 21,000 people, the mayor makes almost 20,000, 19,250. Council members make 12,500. Towns like us, New Ulm, their council members make 8,000. The mayor makes 10,500. So nobody's going into this role to become rich. But we need to be compensated for our time. For the amount of hours that we are working, we are making far less than minimum wage. So even though I'm against raising levies and taxes, and this is not going to affect me because I'm not running next year, and so the raise will be the person who takes my seat, but I'd speak in favor of it.
Other discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 18, Commission Board Liaison Reports. Craig?
Report, Mr. Mayor.
Similar.
Amanda?
Public Housing Commission met yesterday. They had a lead-based paint testing in the high-rise building, and that came out completely clear. So they have no buildings with lead-based paint, which is pretty cool. And then we're working on reviewing a stack of papers about this big. It's called ACOP, Admissions and Continued Occupancy Policy, that they're hoping to introduce here in August.
Very good.
Lots of fun.
Southwest Regional Development Commission has their annual meeting this Thursday. I have a work-related commitment, so I will be unable to attend. I think the council all received an invitation, so you're all welcome to attend that meeting. It is in Wyndham. So, John?
Nothing.
See?
The library board met. We approved the 2025 budget draft, so that will be coming to the county and the city to look at. The DEI Commission just met before this meeting, and we had a really good discussion on recruitment engagement and how to get more commission members and how to keep them engaged. Sharon had shared the Juneteenth summary of how that went, and then, just some updates on the Welcoming Week event that will be held in September. That's all I have.
Very good. And Jim?
Mine did not meet.
Okay. Then we'll move to council member individual items. Jim, let's start on your end.
I just have one item here, and now we have another garbage company in town, which is great, but that's something I think we should take a look at. I know we don't like to create new ordinances, but garbage trucks are one of the hardest things on our roads. And with 4 of them coming down the road every day, I know other communities have looked at that, and, going through our alleys, they're going to rip our alleys apart with 4 trucks going through them. And then you have, I don't know, the 5th one would be recycling. So it's something for us to consider, especially since we pass all alley costs on to homeowners if they want to improve their alleys. I'm looking at Craig thinking of his poor alley as it comes apart, but garbage trucks are really, really hard on our alleys. They're not built for that weight of a vehicle.
Well, and I'd like to add on to that. I agree, and I look at our alley because they go between 5th and 6th Street, and they don't go beyond 6th Street because there is no alley beyond 6th Street, so they turn around and come back. So we have every recycling truck, every garbage truck making 2 passes every week or every other week with this recycling. And I've talked to my neighbors, and some are okay with taking their garbage from the alley out to the street in front. And of course, the garbage hauler is kind of complaining about having to make the run up and down the street. But boy, I sure would like to keep them out of our alley. Our alley is destroyed. And I mean, they have to pick the garbage up there, but we decide to put it in the alley. And I guess if we told the garbage trucks they can't run in the alley, we'd quickly learn to take it to the front to the street, wouldn't we?
So a good topic for further discussion.
It is. That's all I thought of. And I know we have the topic eventually at L&O for billboards. There's come up a couple meetings ago about the billboards. I think we need to revisit that ordinance too before we end up with a bunch of them around town. That's all I have.
See?
I had the opportunity to attend the League of Minnesota Cities conference in Rochester. Is it 2 weeks now? And it was really good. It was fun to meet with other elected officials and see Pam there. And it was just really neat to see what everybody else is doing in their cities. And I was really proud about what Marshall has done in our city. And when we were at the awards show, I was like, gosh, we could win that, some of those awards, because I'm like, we're doing so much more cooler stuff here. So we're definitely going to, what is it called? Enter and then try to win some of those. Because I think we have such neat things going on here in Marshall. So I was really proud to go there and represent Marshall. So thank you for letting me go.
John? Nothing. Craig?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Steve?
Similar, nothing, Mr. Mayor.
And Amanda?
Same, nothing.
And thank you, C, for your comments about the League of Minnesota Cities, along with yourself, Councilmember Lozinski, and myself also attended, along with Sharon, and that was it, right? Yeah.
And my intern,
Oh, yes,
the
Stephen.
city's intern. Excuse me. My intern, it's the city's.
And that's all, it's a time commitment, but it's always a good conference. And we will move then to the staff reports. Sharon?
I have nothing at this time.
Jason?
Very little. The mill and overlay project is pretty well completed. All the paving is done. Now we're just going through and checking some final things, but nice to see the roads paved that were milled. The Minnesota 23 lift station project is half operational. We've got 2 of the pumps hooked up and live, and the other 2 will get done next week. So that's good to see that come to a close. That's a really good investment. And Lion Circle work started today on that project. So that's all I have.
And Independence Park is completed.
Yes, thank you. The parking lot is open and accessible and looks great.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions for Jason? Pam? Nothing. Okay. So you have the remaining items on the agenda, including the administrative brief, the building permits, the listing of upcoming meetings. Is there any other item to come forward this evening at this meeting? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by C, seconded by Amanda to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. The motion does pass. We are adjourned.